We do not suffer because we lack medicine. We suffer because we have forgotten one profound truth. Within every human being flows a sacred current of energy, silent, powerful, and all-encompassing, waiting to be remembered. None of us was born to live in fear, sickness, or helplessness. We were born to heal, not through striving, but through realization, not from the outside, but from the depths within, where there is a quiet yet commanding voice that says, "This is the power of the voice within," not merely a voice you hear, but a sanctuary you return to. This journey is the map to awaken that truth from body to thought, from fear to faith, from spoken word to inner light. Each part is a piece of the puzzle, guiding you back to the only place you ever needed to be, within yourself, awakening the healing power within. You do not need to be fixed. You need to be awakened. There is nothing broken within you, except that you have forgotten who is living in you. This world has been conditioned to search for miracles outside itself, to believe that healing must come from another's hands, from a pill, from a surgery, from some power located somewhere beyond this body. Yet the power to heal does not come from the outside. It has always been here, hidden in your breath, in the very first thought that greets you upon waking, in the silence you have overlooked, in the stream of light flowing beneath what seems like chaos. The truth is, you do not need to become anything at all. You only need to stop resisting the divine nature already present within you. Healing is not a reward for being good enough, obedient enough, or lucky enough. Healing is the natural result of the union between the mind and life itself. And when you awaken to that awareness, your body begins to obey outside of you. And the world urges you to lean on quick fixes, a pill for anxiety, a prescription for disorder, a diagnosis to give fear a name. But God is not found there. You will not find true healing in temporary solutions, because real healing does not come from the instrument. It comes from knowing who is at work within you. Each time you turn inward and listen to that silent voice, you are stepping onto the true foundation of restoration. There is no method stronger than clarity, no antibiotic more potent than a mind anchored in faith. No medical procedure can work to its fullest without the partnership of the will, the emotions, and the awareness of the one being healed. And here is the truth you have forgotten. You are not a victim. You are a channel. You are not bound by the illness, but by the belief that created it. Healing does not begin with the first dose of medicine. It begins with the first thought you agree with. If you hold the belief that you are fragile, your body will mirror that fragility. If you harbor the feeling of unworthiness, each cell will contract in obedience to that command. But when you declare that the divine life is living in me, each cell will hear and begin to realign. Not every sick person needs more medicine. Many simply need to be reminded that they are not a body in battle. They are the consciousness in command. When you awaken the spirit, you activate a law that no clinic can write on a prescription pad, the law of resonance. What the mind vibrates, the body reflects. The divine life does not come and go with emotion. It is always present, only blocked by layers of false belief you have accepted and carried for too long. You do not need to do something grand. You only need to sit down, be still, and begin to speak in silence. I am health. I am life. I am light in expression. These words, when spoken from a centered mind, we have the power to dissolve disorders built up over months, even years. They are not magic spells, they are spiritual decrees. God does not need your pleading. He only needs your remembering, and when you remember, the entire universe within you begins to move again in its rightful order. What was once chaotic will dissolve. What was once inflamed will calm. What was once tense will release. not because you forced it, but because you stopped interfering. When you cease believing you must control everything, life begins to restore its own order. Modern science can measure symptoms, but only you can measure your own agreement with the light within. Just like a house is lit from the switch, not the bulb, the switch is inside you. Each time you touch the silence, you are turning back on a light that was never truly off, and that light never goes out. You do not need someone else to heal you. You need to become the one who no longer agrees with the illness. Do not repeat what the world says about the body. Begin to speak again what your soul has known from the beginning. Live as though the life flowing through you is untouchable. Walk as though you have always been whole. Breathe as though you are breathing with the life of the Creator. You do not need a sign. This is the sign. You do not need a miracle. You are the miracle. You do not need to search for healing. You are the place where healing waits to be revealed. And when you agree with that, nothing can stop the divine process from flowing through you. For you are not someone waiting to be rescued. You are someone learning to remember you were never lost. Healing is not a prize. It is the right to live in alignment with your true being. And you have always had that right. Here, now, all it takes is your agreement, the bridge between science and faith. Have you ever wondered why two people can take the same pill, follow the same treatment plan, yet one recovers quickly while the other shows little improvement? Could it be that the difference lies not only in the body, but in the inner state of the person? If you are hearing this now, I want to ask you honestly, do you believe that thought can influence the speed of recovery? Have you ever truly felt that faith or fear has changed the way your body responds to pain? If you have ever experienced something like that, know that you are not alone. And if you have never considered it before, then this message is written especially for you between the cold walls of the hospital and the gleaming glass panels of the laboratory. There remains something that has not been fully measured, the presence of the human mind in the process of healing. We have grown accustomed to seeing science and faith as two opposing worlds. One deals in results that can be measured, verified, and replicated. The other belongs to the realm of the mysterious, the invisible, that which cannot be proven yet, cannot be denied. But the truth is, they have never been separate. They have only been divided by human misunderstanding, for faith is not anti-science, and science is never complete without the soul. The first penicillin pills that saved thousands of lives on the battlefield did not appear by chance. They were the material expression of divine intelligence working through humanity. Every medical breakthrough, every pharmacological discovery, every antibiotic ever produced carries within it something from the realm of creation. What we often forget is that medicine itself has no consciousness. It is the one who uses it that determines how it works. Your body does not just receive the pill, it also receives the belief you place into it. And if you take medicine in fear, you have already caused your immune system to contract before the antibiotic even begins its work. But if you take it with the awareness that this is an instrument of God, you cease to be a mere patient. You become a partner. The story of healing is not a battle between the clinic and the church. It is the agreement between the hands of the physician and the light within your soul. Every material instrument has its limits. But when it is connected to enlightened faith, those limits are expanded. Consider the cases that modern medicine still calls unexplained, those recoveries without clear physical cause. The so-called unexpected positive responses. Behind such outcomes is no accident. It is the moment when a person stops fearing, stops doubting, and begins to remember who they are. It is the meeting point where faith joins hands with science. We do not deny medicine. We do not reject doctors. We do not encourage the illusion that faith can replace everything. But we affirm that when faith walks alongside right action, the healing power becomes deeper, faster, and longer lasting. A person who takes medicine with gratitude receives more than the chemical compound alone. A person who prays yet resists the prescribed treatment slows down the very result they are hoping for. But when mind and body move in the same rhythm, the miraculous becomes the ordinary. Imagine if every hospital had a quiet room where patients were reminded that they are the place where divine life is at work. Imagine if every prescription came with an affirmation reminding you that this medicine carries not only chemistry but a spirit of cooperation with you. Imagine if every doctor began their shift with a moment of stillness, remembering that their hands are channels for the good to flow through. In such a world, healing would no longer be a miracle. It would be the natural result of harmony between the inner and the outer. So if you are on the path of recovery, do not think you are merely taking medicine. You are engaging your very self. Do not let the tools placed in your hands be rendered powerless by your own doubt of their value. And if you are caring for someone, remember that your presence, the way you see the patient, the way you believe in the life within them, all form part of the healing process. Thank you for listening. Your presence here is no accident. Your openness is the most fertile ground for any instrument of healing to take root. Science has not betrayed you. Faith has not abandoned you. All that is required is that you stop separating them. Let them work together. Let yourself become the bridge. For when you agree to this, every limit that once stood before you will begin to retreat, and life will enter not as a temporary guest, but as the rightful owner returning home. 4 steps to spiritual healing in clinical practice. Healing is a process with order. It does not happen by accident, nor is it the product of vague belief, nor a reward for moral worthiness. It is the result of the union between enlightened thought and the spiritual law silently operating in every cell. And like any process governed by law, spiritual healing follows a clear sequence, one that cannot be skipped or shortened. It rests on 4 foundational steps: stillness, affirmation, visualization, and action. Each step is a doorway. Each doorway opens to a deeper level of agreement with life. Stillness is the first step, and also the one most often neglected in the modern world. Without stillness, there is no foundation on which to build. Without a foundation, nothing holds. Stillness is not the mere absence of noise in the environment. It is the withdrawal from all inner restlessness. It is the place where the mind stops crying out to be saved, stops arguing to maintain control, and begins to listen to what has always been present. In that moment, you cease to be a person struggling against illness and become the space where life expresses itself. No tension survives in a truly still mind. When you enter stillness, every false assumption about the body begins to crack. You start to touch the divine essence untouched by harm, untainted by diagnosis, and unbound by medical history. This is where true healing begins. Affirmation is the second step. Once the ground of the mind is quiet, affirmation becomes the seed. Unlike empty platitudes, a true affirmation is a vibrating decree sent to the subconscious, commanding the nervous system and reorienting biological processes. An affirmation does not attempt to create something that does not exist. It simply acknowledges what has always been there but has been obscured. A true affirmation need not be long, ornate, or dramatic. It must only be clear, consistent, and spoken from a mind free of doubt. I am the life in operation. The divine light is adjusting every cell of my being. Every system in me responds to the command of wholeness. Asterisk. When these words are repeated from a centered state, the body does not merely hear them. It begins to reorganize its structure in obedience to them. Visualization is the third step. If affirmation is the word sent to the subconscious, visualization is the image imprinted upon it. Every physical recovery begins with an inner picture. A person truly begins to heal when they stop seeing themselves as the victim of illness and start seeing themselves living strong, steady, and full of vitality. The key is not to imagine a miracle, but to envision an outcome that has already taken place. You do not picture yourself trying to get well. You picture yourself as having always been whole. You see yourself walking with strength, eating with pleasure, breathing deeply, sleeping peacefully, waking energized. You do not picture the struggle against symptoms. You picture the harmonious operation that has been present from the beginning. And you do this daily, not to convince anyone, but to deepen the imprint upon the nervous system. The mind does not distinguish between outer reality and inner imagery. It simply carries out what you repeat. And if you repeat the image of wholeness, your body will begin to adjust every system to match it. Action is the final step, not hurried action, not grandiose, but small, deliberate actions born from the unity of belief and embodiment. If you believe life is healing you, act as though it is happening. If you have declared that your body responds to light, then take your medicine not with anxiety, but with a blessing for it. If you have envisioned yourself healthy, then let a measure of that steadiness show in each step you take. Action is the final confirmation that you are not merely thinking, not merely speaking, but choosing to live from that level of awareness. You are not waiting for healing, you are cooperating with it. Healing is not magic. It is the reordering of the deepest levels of your operational system. These 4 steps are not theory. They are a living system. Stillness takes you out of disorder. Affirmation restores the order of the mind. Visualization reorients the biochemistry. Action brings it all into manifestation. When you walk through all 4 steps, you stop pleading for recovery, you become part of the healing process. And when you become it, you cannot help but recover, for it is no longer a possibility, it is an outcome. Not drawn from the outside, but called forth from the deepest place within you, the place where you have never been harmed, where life has never retreated, and where, if you call, it answers, and it answers with wholeness, not the germ, but the idea of illness. It is not the germ that causes disease. The germ is merely the form. The idea is the cause. The human body does not break down on its own. It simply mirrors the signals sent from the deepest regions of the mind. When a thought is repeated in a state of fear, doubt, or despair, it begins to crystallize into an image. That image is stored in the subconscious as a distorted blueprint. Over time, the body follows that blueprint, constructing a condition that strays from its original order. Illness, by any name, is the final expression of an idea left unchecked. If you wish for true healing, you must go back to trace that idea to its origin and choose again what you wish to carry within you. People often ask why 2 individuals can be exposed to the same germ, yet only one falls ill. The answer lies in the thought field of each person. Someone living in gratitude, positivity, and a strong trust in life sets up a vibration in which the seed of disease cannot take root. Meanwhile, someone living in prolonged tension, self-judgment, or deep guilt creates an inner environment that welcomes the manifestation of illness, not because they are weak, but because they are unaware of the power of their own thoughts. The body obeys whatever the mind agrees to, and if the mind has agreed with the idea that it is vulnerable, undeserving of health, or under punishment, then the body will find a way to make that idea tangible. Germs have no inherent power to harm. They require the right inner environment in order to activate. A person holding to ideas of life, light, and divine protection lives in a climate where germs cannot settle. Conversely, a person living in fear and self-opposition creates an environment into which anything can easily enter. Think of the body as a garden. The seeds of illness cannot sprout if the soil does not receive them. And thought is that soil, what you plant is what you harvest. If you do not want to see decay in the flowers, examine the soil that has been feeding them. We have been taught to eliminate symptoms, but not to renew thought. We have learned to fight germs, but forgotten how to stop feeding the negative vibrations that give them permission to exist. But you do not have to fight. You simply have to stop cooperating with the idea that created the problem. When you withdraw your agreement, the body begins to restructure itself in a new direction. Healing is not about eradication. It is about changing the point of origin, not about resisting the effect, but correcting the cause. The difference between taking medicine and truly healing lies in the level of awareness. A pill may help you move past a symptom, but if you do not change the root thought that gave birth to that symptom, it will return in another form, in another place, at another intensity. This is not a threat, it is law. Thought always manifests into form. Form never exists on its own. No one falls ill by accident. Every condition is an exact reflection of an idea once accepted, even if accepted unconsciously. And the good news is, you can choose again. You do not have to live by the old blueprint. You can rewrite it right now. Remember, everything begins with agreement. If you have agreed with a thought of weakness, agree with it no more. If you have repeated the phrase, "My body easily gets sick," stop it today. If you have believed you are unworthy of health, declare the opposite with complete clarity. For every declaration made from awareness is an act of restoring order, and nothing is more powerful than a person who has chosen a new thought. We do not deny the existence of germs, but we affirm a deeper truth, that germs can only express themselves in a space where thought has granted permission. And when you renew your thought, you close the door through which illness once entered, not by fighting, not by fearing, but by choosing again. Life has always been waiting for this, and your body in every cell is waiting for a new command, a new thought, a new decision about who you truly are. For when you remember that you are the space through which divine life flows, no other idea can remain in you for long. And where there is no idea of illness, illness cannot exist. The case of James, healing through agreement. James was not an extraordinary man. He had no innate spiritual gifts, no formal training in meditation or psychology. He was an ordinary middle-aged man, hard-working, devoted to his family, living by respectable standards. But one day, he received a cold, clinical verdict from his doctor, a tumor in the liver, aggressive, with an unfavorable prognosis. The news froze every movement in his life. Question surged. A feeling of helplessness clouded every thought. Yet in the midst of that panic, something unusual happened. James did not rush to find answers outside himself. He sat quietly in his car long after the appointment, and for the first time in his life, he did not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Asterisk instead. He asked, "What have I agreed to that allowed this to happen?" Asterisk. That question, not the tumor, was the turning point. James began to realize that illness was not merely a biological disruption. It was the accumulated result of ideas that had been quietly operating within him for years. He was an inward man, often enduring in silence, suppressing his emotions to keep the peace, sacrificing his own needs to please others. He never let anyone see him tired. He never refused a request. He never truly allowed himself to rest. Eventually, his body had to speak the words he would not say. When he saw this, James did not turn to fight the tumor. He turned to correct the thinking that had given rise to it. He began each day in stillness not to beg, but to listen. He wrote down every belief that had contributed to this distorted reality. I must please everyone. I am not allowed to make mistakes. I cannot rest. Asterisk. He saw these statements as silent contracts he had signed with his subconscious long ago, and he began to cancel each contract consciously. There was no ritual, no instant miracle, only a man who began to choose again every day. James sat down, breathed deeply, and spoke one simple truth. I agree with life. I no longer agree with burdens. I no longer agree with guilt. I no longer agree with unconscious sacrifice. I agree with peace. I agree with divine love. I agree with a new order within me. Asterisk. These were not incantations. They were commands, and his body heard them. Within weeks, the pain began to ease, not because the medicine had finally taken effect, but because James had withdrawn his agreement with what no longer served him. He did not resist the doctors, he cooperated, but this time he did not lean entirely on the treatment plan. He brought awareness into every pill, light into every sip of water, blessing into every meal. Every act of self-care was now born, not from fear, but from love. The real change was not in the first test results. It was in the way he looked at his wife and children. It was in how he rose each morning with a new attitude. It was in the stillness that no longer carried the weight of avoidance, but the foundation of clarity. These were the signs of a man who had chosen again from the root. And then, after 2 months, the doctor called him back for a follow-up. The tumor had unexpectedly shrunk. His biochemical markers showed remarkable improvement. No one dared call it a miracle, but all agreed something was happening that medicine could not fully explain. James continued his process not for the results, but because he was no longer living from the old script. He was no longer a man waiting to recover, he was a man recovering in every moment. His agreement was no longer a reflex to fear, it was a conscious act, repeated daily. I choose life. I choose love. I choose myself again. Asterisk. And in that choice, the body could not help but change. Not everyone will have James's story, but everyone has his power. That power does not come from circumstances, it comes from decision. James did not heal through sheer willpower. He healed through a new agreement. And that is something you can do without waiting for a doctor's approval, without waiting for conditions to change. You can begin now not by resisting what is, but by agreeing with what you know is true. For when you agree with life, life agrees with you, and everything else, in the most natural way, will adjust itself, without noise, without drama, simply the divine order returning to its rightful place within you. No illness, only false belief. You were not born with disease. There is no destiny that condemns you to suffer pain for a lifetime. There is no cosmic design that scripts your failure, collapse, or helplessness. The only thing that causes you to repeat a state of suffering is false belief. That belief was not born from your soul. It was learned from the world, from fearful experiences, from unconscious words repeated over the years, from judgments you unknowingly accepted and kept as truth. But truth has never harmed you. Only an error believed for too long has the power to disrupt an otherwise perfect system. There is no illness, only beliefs that no longer serve you. When someone lives long enough in a state of self-opposition, the body is compelled to reflect it, not as punishment, but as a signal. The body has no voice of its own. It only amplifies the message the mind is sending. If you believe you are weak, the body will find a way to confirm it. If you believe you do not deserve joy, the nervous system will respond with persistent fatigue. If you believe life is an endless battle, then every cell will contract. to prepare for that fight. And then you call it illness, but in truth, it is only the honest reflection of a thought system that has drifted from reality. This is not a denial of painful experiences. Pain is real. Exhaustion is real. But their cause does not lie in the body. It lies in the foundation of consciousness. No one simply gets sick for no reason. No one loses energy without cause. There is always a belief at work behind it. And the essential point is this: belief can be replaced. You do not have to fight the illness. You only need to stop feeding the belief that created it. You do not need to force yourself into artificial positivity. You only need to return and ask, what am I believing? And is it still true? Asterisk. Every idea can be replaced with truth. And the truth is, you are not damaged. You have always been whole. You do not need anything more to be enough. You only need to stop agreeing with false ideas about yourself. That is where all healing begins. Not with medicine, not with advice, but with a quiet adjustment within, a clear declaration. I no longer agree with distortion. I no longer agree with guilt, with judgment, with fear. I agree with light. I agree with life. I agree with the undivided essence of who I am. This is the power of the voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a place you return to, not an external sound, but the deepest stillness within you, where everything falls away, where every layer becomes transparent. When you return there, you do not need to heal anything. You simply reclaim the truth. And that truth is not fragile, not weary, not violated. That truth is you, not the version you are trying to become, but the deepest, unchanging, the powerful essence that has always been there. You do not have to erase everything old. You only have to stop repeating it. When an idea is no longer repeated, it begins to fade from the active field. When you stop affirming what is false, what is true will begin to rise, just as the sun does not need to be created. It only needs to be revealed when the clouds part. And those clouds are the old beliefs you have still been holding. Letting go of them does not take anything away from you. On the contrary, it returns what has always been yours. A life free from bondage, light, in clarity, steady amid all change. False beliefs do not come from nowhere. They are learned, absorbed, and repeated by others who are also in pain. And now, you do not need to continue them. You can begin to choose again, not with resistance, but with gratitude for the lessons past, because they showed you it was time to choose differently. You do not need to fight what is wrong. You only need to agree with what is right. And what is right is not out there. It is whispering inside you every time you dare to pause and listen. Your body does not need you to do more. It needs you to believe, again, not with blind faith, but with a quiet confirmation from a place very deep, a place where every answer already exists, a place where nothing needs to be proven, a place where you remember that you were not born to endure, but to express life. And when you rise from that place, everything begins to recover, not because you forced it, but because you stopped agreeing with what is not real, and nothing unreal can remain when the light of truth is brought back. Thought determines the body's response. The body does not react to circumstances, it reacts to thought. When an event occurs, your body does not automatically generate anxiety, tension, or panic. Those reactions only appear after your mind has assigned the event a certain meaning. It is that meaning, not the event itself, that becomes the true cause of your biological response. Two people can experience the same loss, the same medical diagnosis, or the same hardship, yet their bodies will respond in completely different ways, depending on how they think about it. One sees it as the end, the other as an invitation to change, and the body listens only to what the mind repeats. When you dwell on a fearful thought, the body instantly produces stress hormones, activating the sympathetic nervous system and preparing for fight or flight. arthroteresis musculatas, digestion pauses, immunity weakens. Yet no real enemy has appeared, only a stream of thought repeated so often that the body believes the threat is real. And from there, the wearing down begins not from the world, but from within you. Most of these negative thoughts are not ones you consciously choose. They come from habit, from environment, from limiting teachings, from unhealed past experiences. But wherever they come from, once they are kept and repeated long enough, the body will adapt to them. And in this case, an adaptation does not mean becoming stronger. It means bracing to endure. Prolonged endurance is the very foundation of all weakness. Thought determines how your body digests food, absorbs nutrients, rests, and recovers. The same meal eaten in a state of anxiety or guilt will provoke a very different physical response than if it is eaten with gratitude. A person who takes medicine while harboring doubt will reduce its effectiveness. Another person who takes the exact same medicine with trust in the life moving through it will experience a far more positive response. The difference is not in the medicine, but in the underlying thought each person carries. You cannot heal with a disordered mind, and you cannot be disordered if your thought is clear, wise, and at peace. When someone says, "I am tired, I am sick," what they are truly describing is an imbalance between what they think and who they really are. The body is simply obeying the orders it receives from thought. But once thought is corrected, the body no longer has any reason to maintain that condition. It will begin to change without force. You do not need to try to control every thought. That is unnecessary and unrealistic. But you can absolutely choose the core thought you want your body to listen to. If each morning you begin with the declaration, "I agree with life, I am peace, I am the place where wholeness is expressed," then all other thoughts will gradually lose their foothold. The body, like a mirror, will begin to reflect that new light in every system, every cell, every breath. You can see this clearly in people who live in love and purpose. They recover faster, more sustainably, and are less likely to relapse. Their thought does not feed separation. They do not see illness as an enemy, but as a signal. They do not see the body as a victim, but as an ally, and they do not live in resistance, but in cooperation. When thought shifts from fighting to uniting, the body no longer has any reason to resist. It steps naturally into the process of restoration. We have been thoroughly taught how to care for the body from the outside, yet few are ever shown how to nourish it from the inside through thought. Food is part of it. Movement is part of it. Medicine is part of it. But the most decisive foundation remains the way you think about yourself. If you carry the belief, "I am the place where divine life is operating, I was created to be whole," asterisk, then every act of caring for your body becomes part of the true healing process. No thought is neutral. Every thought you keep is either strengthening or weakening your biological system, and you have the power to choose not to choose the circumstances, but to choose the response, not to choose the easy road, but to choose the right thought, because the right thought always brings you back to life, to peace, and to freedom from all suffering. And the body, like a loyal companion, will follow that thought faithfully, down to the very last cell. The body is a reflection of the mind. The body does not lie. It does not know how to act. It is not skilled at disguise. Every mark on the skin, every movement of a muscle, every breath, every ache is telling an honest story the mind wrote long ago. The body is a reflection, not a cause. It does not spontaneously generate disorder. It only manifests what the mind has accepted as true. For this reason, all lasting healing must begin in the mind. You cannot change the mirror without adjusting the face. You cannot force the body into wellness while the thoughts remain chaotic, fearful, and divided. Every part of the body speaks its own language. The stomach does more than digest food. It digests unspoken emotions. The liver does more than filter physical toxins. It processes unresolved anger. The heart does more than pump blood. It holds wounds yet to be forgiven. The muscles do more than move. They store memories you have not released. If you are still enough, you can feel it. You will notice that back pain is not only from poor posture, but from the invisible burdens you have carried too long, that a stiff neck is not only from sleeping wrong, but from rigidity in your thinking. The body never deceives you. It is always trying to wake you up. Yet instead of listening, we often give orders. When the body speaks through a symptom, we try to silence it with medication, with quick fixes, with denial. We do not ask. We impose. We do not understand. We try to control, but healing does not come from force. It begins the moment you stop fighting the expression and start conversing with the cause. And the cause is always within. Your mind is not the enemy, it is the scriptwriter. And the body is the actor. If you write lines of fear, the body will tremble. If you write lines of despair, the body will weaken. But if you rewrite the script with trust, forgiveness, and the light of awareness, the body will reflect it every day, in every movement. You are declaring something. The question is, what are you declaring through your body? You do not need to know the symbolic language of every organ. You only need to turn inward and ask, what was I thinking when this symptom began? What did I believe when this pain appeared? What feeling am I holding on to that has not been released? Asterisk honesty with yourself opens the first door to healing. No deep analysis required, just seeing clearly. And from that seeing, you can choose again. You can say to your body, I understand, I hear you, and now I am ready for a new agreement. The mind does not need to be perfect. It only needs constant adjustment toward truth. The body does not require you to be saintly. It only asks you to live in honesty with what is right. When you agree with the truth that you are the expression of life, the body cannot continue to hold on to what opposes life. It will begin to release disorders that no longer have a foundation. It will breathe deeper, recover faster, function in greater harmony, not because you forced it, but because you stopped sending false signals. There are people who remain ill for years simply because they never question the belief system running within them. They change diets, routines, exercises habits, yet forget that the root lies in what they think, what they whisper in their minds, what they repeat daily. You can take medicine, go to therapy, do everything externally. But if the core thought remains, I am not enough, I am guilty, I am vulnerable, asterisk, then recovery will always be temporary. On the other hand, if you begin to declare right thoughts, then even without physical intervention, the body will begin to change because it does not need much. It only needs a clear directive from the mind that it is time to return to its original order. Your body is a sacred expression. It is not your enemy. It is not a machine to be fixed. It is a living stream seeking to return to the principle of harmony. When you pause, reflect, and choose your thoughts anew, you give your body a fresh opportunity to operate in truth. And in truth, there is no disease, no division, no fear, only clarity, unity, and a self that is healing every moment without you needing to strive. You only need to agree. You only need to step out of the old pattern and choose again. The body will follow because it is always loyal to what you believe is true. And the truth has always been there. waiting for you to return. Scientific prayer and antibiotics, a partnership. Healing is not a battle between faith and medicine. It is not a choice between prayer and antibiotics, between energy and science, between the sacred and the physical. In truth, when you understand the nature of life, you see that all can work together. True healing does not come from exclusion, it comes from integration. And when you learn how to combine deep faith with conscious action, with modern medicine, with scientific prayer, the process of recovery not only becomes faster, but also more sustainable. Not because of a miracle, but because you are engaging multiple dimensions of life at once. Some believe that if you trust in the power of inner healing, you have no need for medicine, but that is a dangerous misunderstanding. Medicine, in its right purpose, is not the opposite of faith. It is a physical instrument to help the body restore balance. If you take medicine with the clear awareness that it is working in harmony with your intention to heal, its effect will be far greater. Conversely, if you take it while harboring doubt, fear, guilt, or disappointment, even the best compounds will be limited in their action. For the body does not only absorb chemical components, it also absorbs the idea you attach to them. Scientific prayer is not pleading for something outside yourself. It is the declaration from a place of clear awareness that you are in agreement with divine order, that you are inviting life to return to its original design. Prayer does not replace medicine, and medicine cannot replace prayer, but when both are used rightly, each amplifies the other. Prayer resets the foundation of thought. Medicine supports the physical expression. One works at the deep level of cause, the other addresses the effect. Both are needed if you want true healing rather than symptom management. Countless medical studies have shown that people with positive faith, those who meditate, pray, or nurture deep hope, tend to recover faster, respond better to treatment, and have stronger immunity. This is not luck. It is because they are adjusting the frequency of their thought, creating an inner field where medicine and food, rest, and every other measure become more effective. They do not just take medicine, they bless it. They do not just drink water, they give thanks for it. They do not just pray, they live as though the prayer has already been answered. The key is not to become extreme. True faith is never in opposition to anything, it simply chooses what is right. And what is right is this: if your body needs physical support, receive it with gratitude. Do not make medicine the enemy. Do not view treatment as failure. Instead, you see it as part of the process in which you are partnering with life. Just as you cannot feed the spirit and starve the body, you cannot focus only on the body and ignore the deeper layer of thought. Only when you address both will you truly recover. The remarkable truth is this: even medicine works better in an atmosphere of peace. When you relax, release tension, and trust the process, the autonomic nervous system regulates, circulation improves, absorption is enhanced, and the body receives medicine as a friend rather than as a forced intervention. And that makes all the difference, not because you are controlling it, but because you are cooperating. You do not have to choose between faith and the doctor. Choose both, but choose with clarity. Do not seek the doctor out of fear. Do not pray out of panic. Approach both as companions in a journey where you are the active center. When you stand in that place of agency, every form of external support becomes valuable. But if you live in dependency, even the best treatment can lead you back into the same loop. Healing is not about picking sides, it is about choosing unity. Science is not in conflict with spirit. The body is not opposed to the soul. Medicine does not hinder prayer. Only you, if divided in thought, can weaken the process. But once you unify, once you take medicine with awareness, pray with clarity, Act with gratitude. Life cannot do anything but respond to you with restoration. No miracle required, only the right choice. And the right choice here is to reunite what was once divided within you. Right now, documented cases of healing. There are things that happen in hospital rooms that modern medicine cannot fully explain. People who seem to be standing at the very edge suddenly turn and recover as if by a miracle. Yet this is not a miracle in the mystical sense. It is living evidence of a simple but powerful principle. When the mind is tuned to the right frequency, it opens the way for life to flow in. And where life is allowed to operate freely, illness has no ground to exist. A woman in her 70s with metastatic cancer had undergone years of treatment until her doctors declared there was nothing more they could do. She was sent home exhausted, her spirit worn down, preparing for a final farewell. But there was something the doctors could not see. She began spending time each day in complete silence, not to beg for anything, but to listen, not to the panic of her thoughts, but to a small voice whispering, "I have not left you. I am here." Asterisk. This is the power of voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to. From that space, she no longer felt like a victim, no longer weak or pitiful. She began to repeat declarations of life. I am peace. I am the dwelling place of light. I no longer agree with pain. I agree with love. Asterisk. Each day she repeated these words in stillness without force, without expectation, and the miracle was not that the tumor vanished instantly, but that her eyes began to shine. Her speech grew clear again. Her hand on her heart carried gratitude as she said, "I am alive." 3 months later, her blood counts improved. Her doctors were astonished. There had been no new medical intervention, but a new idea had been planted. And when the idea changed, the body could not help but follow. No one dared declare she was cured. But she herself said, "I don't need to be cured to know I am living." Asterisk. That attitude brought a deeper transformation than any medicine could. Another case, a young man, severely injured in a traffic accident, was told he would never walk again. His family was devastated. He was silent, not with despair, but with a focus they had never seen before. Each morning, he told the nurse, "I am practicing walking in my mind. I see myself moving through nature, feeling the sun on my skin." Asterisk. He was not daydreaming. He repeated it daily with clarity and consistency. When physical therapy began, despite the pain, he never said, "It hurts too much." Asterisk. He said, "I am opening a little more for life to operate." 6 months later, he took his first steps. No one could explain it, but in his eyes, without a word, you could see it was the result of an unbroken belief. Similarly, patients with autoimmune conditions labeled for life as dependent on medication began inner healing journeys. They did not stop their medication, nor reject medicine, but they added something new: awareness. They realized each allergic reaction in the body was a wounded part of the mind, asking to be heard. Instead of hating their symptoms, they sent love to their bodies. Instead of avoiding their emotions, they embraced and transformed them. Gradually, the body calmed, doses were reduced, flare-ups became rare. From moments of stillness, they returned to the untouchable center, where no illness had ever reached. These cases are not products of luck or coincidence. They are the results of a universal principle always at work. Where consciousness is elevated, matter reorganizes to match it. Healing is not about breaking down the old, but lifting the present to a higher plane. And that happens when you remember you are not limited by the body. The body is the place where the mind is expressed. When you read these stories, do not ask, "Why could they do it but not me?" Asterisk. Ask instead, what within me is waiting to be believed again, to be spoken, to be agreed with, asterisk, because if you are quiet enough, you will hear it not with your ears, but with your awareness. This is the power of voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to, the asterisk. And from that place, you do not need to force recovery. You only need to allow. Life will do the rest. We do not need more proof. We need more awareness. These documented healings are not rare exceptions. They are reminders that the potential has always been present, not somewhere far away, but within you, right now, in every breath, in every choice, in every unspoken sentence in your mind. And if you choose rightly, if you choose again to agree with the truth that you are a channel for life, what once seemed impossible will become obvious, not because the world has changed, but because you have. And when you change, the entire body, circumstance, and even the future cannot remain the same. Fear, the number one mental toxin. There is no poison more dangerous than fear. It not only paralyzes reason, but erodes every cell in the body. When fear is sustained long enough, it becomes an inner environment that blocks the flow of life, prevents the immune system from functioning accurately, and delays or distorts the entire healing process, not because the body has forgotten how to restore itself, but because fear sends out a false signal, constantly instructing the nervous system to remain on alert, maintaining tension, draining energy, and forcing every organ to operate in resistance rather than in harmony. Fear is a natural reflex of survival. But when it no longer serves life and instead becomes a default setting in thought, it ceases to be a protective reaction and becomes the root of all disorder. A person who fears illness invites illness. A person who fears loss behaves as though they have already lost. A person who fears being hurt views life through a lens of defense, suspicion, and withdrawal from its true flow. In that way, life energy becomes blocked, not by the world, but by the silent belief they choose to keep. The body cannot heal in a state of fear, because fear distorts every biological process. Breathing becomes shallow, blood rushes to the midbrain, where only fight or flight responses exist. Digestion halts, sleep becomes disturbed, and even if you eat well, take your medicine faithfully, and attend every checkup, if your mind is still wrapped in fear, all those good efforts will only function at a fraction of their potential. The tragedy is that most fear does not sit on the surface. It hides behind familiar phrases like, what if, asterisk. In case, asterisk, I'm just being careful, asterisk. But beneath that false caution is a silent drain of energy rooted in the assumption that something bad is waiting to happen. Healing begins with spiritual courage, not the courage to go out and do something grand, but the courage to look your fear in the eye and call it by name. Fear can only survive in the dark. Once you are willing to face it and say, I see you, it loses its control over you. Once you sit down, place your hand over your heart and ask, what am I truly afraid of? Asterisk. You begin to reclaim your authority. Only then can the body receive a new signal, a signal of safety, of permission, of return. You cannot drive fear out by brute force of will, but you can transform it by the light of truth. And the truth is, you are not alone. You are not responsible for defending yourself against every possibility. You do not need to live as though something is always lurking. You are the place where divine life breathes, operates, and creates. Where that awareness is present, a fear cannot remain. It will dissolve like morning mist in sunlight. No battle required, only the decision to stop agreeing with it. Some might ask, if I don't worry, how will I prepare for the future? Asterisk. But preparation and fear are two different things. You can act as plan and care for your body, but do so from trust, not Panets. Fear shouts that you must act immediately. Faith whispers, I know I am supported. Asterisk. From that quiet place, your actions will be wiser, more precise, and most importantly, your body will respond far more positively to every step you take. In every healing journey, there is a decisive turning point. The moment you stop asking, why am I like this? Asterisk, and start asking, what fear am I holding that is creating this? Asterisk, and then you release, not life itself, but the defenses. You let your shoulders drop. You breathe deeper. You look in the mirror and no longer see a victim. You see someone learning to trust life again. From that moment, every cell begins to redirect, not holding energy for defense, but using it for regeneration, recovery, and expression. Fear does not need to be hated. It only needs to be understood and put back in its place. It is a signal, not a guide, when you know that you are no longer controlled. And when you are no longer controlled, you can choose again. You will choose love. You will choose gratitude. You will choose truth. And that choice will be the most powerful medicine, stronger than any antibiotic, because it comes from the deepest place where you have always been whole, even if your body has yet to reflect it. Fear is the number one mental toxin, but you do not need to eliminate it by force. Look at it. Listen to it. Choose again, and let the light within you lead your body forward. For healing does not begin with external action. It begins with the inner decision that you will no longer live under the assumption of darkness. You are returning to truth. And in truth, there is nothing to fear, only life, waiting for your agreement to flow again. The blood, a symbol of the divine flow. Blood is not merely a fluid carrying oxygen and nutrients. It is the silent music of life, the eternal song resonating through your body from the moment you were formed in the womb. Every heartbeat is an affirmation that life has never abandoned you, that you are being sustained by a sacred, unceasing current. When blood flows freely, your nervous, immune, and emotional systems move in harmony. When it is obstructed, life cannot fully express itself, and inner discord begins to etch its marks upon the physical body. Blood is the material stream of the divine moving through this visible form. Have you ever stopped to listen to the beating of your heart? Have you ever silently asked, what is keeping this flow alive while I sleep, while I suffer, while I surrender? Asterisk. What continues to faithfully send life into every cell, regardless of whether I believe in it or not? That is the quiet yet mighty presence of the divine, not somewhere far away, but circulating through your very flesh and being. And the question I want to leave with you now, as a gentle yet profound invitation, is this. Has it been too long since you lived as though this body were a sacred temple for that holy flow? If that question touches something deep in you, allow me to thank you for your presence, for your listening, and for the courage rising within you at this very moment. We tend to see blood as a medical factor, tied only to tests and numbers. But blood is also a symbol. In every civilization, blood has been linked with life, with vows, with sacrifice, with miracles. Spiritually, the blood symbolizes the movement of divine will flowing through the body. When you honor the blood you carry, you not only express gratitude for life, you become its co-worker. And when you cooperate with it, you cease to interfere by force and begin to live in trust and awareness. Our breath deepens. Our decision becomes clearer, and the blood responds, heart rhythms calm. Vascular pressures ease. The body begins to heal, not through a chemical agent, but through a shift in the deep layers of belief. Every strong emotion affects the blood, Anger heats it. Fear causes it to constrict. Chronic anxiety thickens it, slowing its movement and robbing it of its needed flexibility. But when you exhale gently, release your shoulders, place your hand over your heart, and tell yourself, I am protected, I am loved, I am guided. Asterisk. Everything within you begins to change, not merely because of the words, but because you have chosen a different state of awareness, and the blood, faithful as a mirror, will reflect that new state in the way it moves and nourishes. Some people, upon hearing bad news, experience a sudden spike in blood pressure, not from genetics, but because a surge of negative thought has struck directly at the nervous system, affecting the heart and circulation. Some fall ill because of grief that was never voiced. Others suffer strokes not for lack of medicine, but because of years of unexpressed emotional pain. And there are those who recover from illness with no medical explanation simply because they forgave, they let go, they allowed the flow to return to its rightful course. If you are healing from a condition involving the blood, the heart, or pressure, the message for you now is clear. Stop. Turn inward. Ask yourself, what flow am I holding back within me? Asterisk. Is it a hurt that has never been heard? An anger that has solidified over the years? A quiet guilt you cannot yet name? You do not have to dig endlessly. You only have to recognize it. You only have to choose again. And let this be your reminder. Blood is not only biology, it is the silent voice of the divine, inviting you back to life. You do not need to control the blood. You only need to live in a state where it can move freely according to its original design. That state is inner peace. It is the absence of overexertion, of restless control, of fear about the future. It is the return to the present, each heartbeat, each breath, and saying to yourself, I agree with life. I trust the flow. I trust that I am being upheld. Asterisk. And when you live this way, your blood no longer has to speak through symptoms, because the message has already been received. And if you are still listening now, I know that the deepest part of you has begun to move, not because you understand everything, but because you have listened with a very real part of yourself. And for that, I offer my deepest thanks for your very presence. Your readiness is the soil in which every miracle can be planted and take root. The blood you carry is not random. It is the chosen stream through which life flows in you. Live worthy of that gift. Let the divine be expressed through every beat in you, not in noise, but in return, words, commands to your cells. Words are not merely sounds carried through the air. They are waves bearing spiritual instructions that reach into the deepest layers of the body. Every sentence you speak is a form of directed energy, entering your cells and delivering a specific command to heal or to harm, to expand or to contract, to grow or to stagnate. The body cannot distinguish between truth and what is repeated often enough. It only knows to receive the order, and those orders do not come from the doctor, nor from the medicine, but from you, through every word you speak each day without realizing it. When you continually say, I am tired, I am weak, I am discouraged, I don't know what to do, asterisk, you are installing an internal operating system called exhaustion, not because it is the truth, but because you have declared it so many times that the body believes it must adapt accordingly. The intelligent cells within you will restructure themselves according to that signal. They require no reason, only consistent instruction. And you are the transmitter of that instruction through your words. Every word strikes the central system like a drumbeat, determining how the body will respond to circumstances, to food, to medicine, to emotions, and even to time. Some people upon hearing a diagnosis, immediately fall into repeating a single phrase, asterisk, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Asterisk. That phrase repeats itself every morning upon waking. Every time they take medication, every time they look in the mirror, and within weeks, their condition worsens faster than expected. Not because the disease grew stronger, but because they had unknowingly amplified it through the energy of their words. Words, when infused with emotion and belief, become incantations. And a negative incantation is more dangerous than any germ. Others choose different words, not to deny reality, but to redirect consciousness. Instead of saying, I can't take this anymore, asterisk, they say, I am learning to breathe through this challenge, asterisk. Instead of saying, asterisk, I'm growing weaker, asterisk, they say, I am opening to a strength I never knew before, asterisk. And that alone can be enough to make a difference, because the body receives the message that it is not abandoned, that its owner is still present, still leading, still choosing life over surrender. And in that moment, the process of healing begins to restore itself. Not every word produces instant results, but every word plants a seed, and that seed will grow in the right conditions. You don't have to shout affirmations like a machine, but you must choose words as though they carry real weight, because they do. Instead of unconsciously saying, I hurt so much, asterisk, try saying, I am feeling the place in my body that needs the most care right now, asterisk. Instead of saying, no one is helping me, asterisk, try saying, I am learning to connect with the greater resources within me, asterisk. Small changes in speech create large shifts over time, and your body will feel the difference. Words also shape the energetic environment in which you live, a space filled with complaints, judgments, and blame gradually becomes a toxic atmosphere where cells cannot relax, hearts cannot beat peacefully, and the immune system stays in constant alert. But a space where words are chosen with care, where every sentence carries respect, support, and gratitude becomes the ideal environment for healing to unfold effortlessly. Think back to moments when someone said something that wounded you deeply or moved you so profoundly that it changed an important decision. That is the power of words. If someone else's words can touch you like that, what can your own words do to you? The answer is everything. Day by day, hour by hour, you are rewriting the internal code of your system through what you say, and your body obeys you more faithfully than you imagine. From this moment forward, speak as if your cells are listening. Speak as if life itself is waiting for your signal to decide its next move. Speak not to satisfy a passing emotion, but to lay the foundation for what you want to see expressed in the future. And when you do this, you cease to be a passive victim. You become the designer, the architect, the scriptwriter of the sacred healing process unfolding every minute within you. You don't need another therapy. You simply need to choose your next word differently. And then the miracle will no longer be distant. It will be the body's natural response to someone who has begun to speak rightly. Forgiveness, the spiritual medicine for the digestive system. Forgiveness is not a gift you give to others, it is a prescription you hand to your own biology. In the human body, the digestive system is often the first to feel the shockwaves of emotional trauma. A hurtful word, a piercing memory, an unresolved event. All of these leave their imprint in the gut, a place designed for receiving, processing, and absorbing nourishment. When negative emotions are trapped and untransformed, the digestive tract becomes a silent storage for pain. Over time, this doesn't just cause bloating, acide reflux, or ulcers. It erodes your very ability to digest life itself. Some take medication for years for stomach pain, not realizing the root cause isn't food, but a resentment they have fed for a decade. Others suffer chronic constipation, not from lack of fiber or water, but because they hold on to stories they've never dared to face. Your digestion reflects more than how you process meals. It mirrors how you process emotions, words, memories, and past decisions. And among all healing methods, forgiveness is the most powerful spiritual medicine for your gut, because it opens the pathway for what has been stuck too long to finally move. Forgiveness does not mean denying what happened. It does not mean rejecting your pain. It is not excusing someone's wrongdoing. Forgiveness is the highest act of one who understands that holding on to resentment is like drinking poison while hoping the other person gets sick. You don't forgive for them, you forgive for you, because your body is tired of bracing every day to shield an old wound, because your gut is weary from trying to separate food from the bitterness you store, because you deserve to live lighter, brighter, freer. Some say, I can't forgive, asterisk, but they forget. They don't have to forgive instantly. Forgiveness is a process, not a moment. It begins when you're honest enough to say, I am hurt. I'm not ready to release it yet, but I know I can't carry this forever. Asterisk. That simple acknowledgement is enough for your digestive system to take its first deep breath in years, because finally you are listening in stillness. If you place a hand over your belly and ask, what am I holding on to? Asterisk. The answer may surprise you. Perhaps it is something a parent said long ago. Perhaps it's the cold glance of a former lover. Perhaps it's a betrayal that was never named. Or perhaps it's yourself, the one you've never forgiven for your own mistakes. Whatever it is, the question is no longer about right or wrong. The real question is, are you ready to stop carrying it? Because when you let go, it's not defeat. It is healing. A woman once lived with ulcerative colitis for years, trying every medication, every diet, but nothing worked. In an emotional healing session, and she realized she had been angry at her mother for nearly 3 decades. Every meal, no matter how healthy, it became a battlefield. Her body could not win. Through unsent letters, seal en prière, and placing her hand on her heart to say she did the best she could, asterisk, something inside her softened. From that day forward, the pain began to fade. Not because she found the perfect drug, but because her body was no longer forced to armor itself against an unforgiven memory. The digestive system only works in harmony when you are no longer living in defense mode. And what frees you from defense is forgiveness, not lip service. But a conscious act, you can write down what needs forgiving. You can whisper it in stillness. You can imagine handing the wound to the divine and saying, I can't carry this anymore, please take it from me. Asterisk. In that moment, you will feel a space open inside a gentle light you never knew existed within you. This is the power of the voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a home you return to. And from that place, your inner organs begin to function smoothly, as though they've been unshackled. You do not need someone's apology to be free. You do not need the past to change for you to be at peace. You only need to remember that life never asks you to keep what has expired. Forgiveness is not charity, it is return. Return to the natural state where the body no longer resists, the mind no longer pushes back, and your soul can once again flow in the gentleness of light. Forgiveness is, in the end, a declaration that you choose life over being right. And from that moment, you no longer digest with your stomach, you digest with love. Inner imagery, the mind's film that shapes the body. Inner imagery is the movie playing non-stop in your mind. Whether you are aware of it or not, each day You are projecting for your body a vivid script, complete with sound, visuals, and emotion. And what you may not realize is this: the body cannot tell the difference between a real scene and an imagined one. It only responds to the images you hold within. If your mind repeatedly plays scenes of failure, hurt, anxiety, or helplessness, then no matter how well you eat, how consistently you exercise, or how many uplifting books you read, your body will still operate on a distorted frequency because it is following a script you do not even know you are broadcasting. Conversely, if you can nourish a clear, as deep, and life-affirming image of wholeness, of a strong and radiant body, of a stream of light flowing through every cell, your body will take that as a directive. Each cell will return to its original frequency. The immune system will understand that a new commander has arrived. The brain will release neurotransmitters of faith, optimism, and connection. And the most extraordinary part is, you don't need a diagnosis, you don't need lab results to confirm it, because you are the director of the film, running the entire biology of your being. Inner imagery is not some vague product of daydreaming. It is born of intentional repetition. A person who has experienced trauma often carries an image of that event like a photograph stamped into the subconscious. If not replaced, it becomes the template the body continually refers back to. Over time, the nervous system will reset its reflexes so that the person lives in constant alert, defense, or paralysis. But when they learn to create new imagery, not to deny the past, but to place a new symbol in the subconscious change, begins from within. Picture yourself walking through a vast open field, a sunlight gently pouring over you, fresh air filling your lungs. Each step, supported by the ground beneath, nothing threatens you. No one is judging you, only life, breathing through the trees, the clouds, and the beat of your own heart, consciously. This may feel like imagination, but to the subconscious, it is a command. Repeat this image daily, even for just 5 minutes, and your body will begin to respond. Your heart rate will slow, muscles will soften, digestion will improve, and your nervous system will shift from survival to growth, all because you chose a different film inside. People often let the mind run wild and then wonder why the body feels exhausted, anxious, or out of control. But no one can watch horror films all day and expect a peaceful night's sleep. In the same way, if the images you carry are of worst-case scenarios, repeated failures, or looming disasters, your body cannot produce an experience of peace. It is only being loyal to the unseen director in your head, a director you may not even know you've hired. Changing your inner imagery does not require resistance. It requires replacement. Each time you catch yourself replaying an old scene, pause it, no judgment, just pause and ask, does this image truly nourish me? Asterisk. If the answer is no, choose again. Imagine a new scene. Plant in your mind a symbol of healing, a light, a calm seer, a loving face, or simply yourself, smiling at life. Repeat, feel it, and trust that you are not doing it alone. Inner imagery is an unspoken prayer, the primal language of the soul. With the right image, you do not need to force belief. The subconscious does not need logic. It needs symbols. And if the symbol is strong enough, clear enough, and repeated enough, nothing can stop your body from restoring itself. Not because you use some advanced technique, but because you understood one simple truth. The body is only the screen. The film that plays, you are the one who chooses it. From this moment on, choose to project the images you want to live inside. Choose the scenes you want printed into your cells, rather than leaving it to the past, to fear, or to unconscious habit. For whether you are aware or not, your body is watching a film right now. The question is, are you the director or a powerless audience? When you choose again, when you turn inward to create, you step into the sacred space where miracles are no longer something to hope for, they become the natural consequence. And the body, with all its silent wisdom, will take care of the rest. The inner Christ, the true healer. The inner Christ is not a figure from the past, not an image hanging on a cross, nor confined within temples or sermons. The inner Christ is the silent yet eternal life force present within every person, waiting for you to remember, acknowledge, and allow him to live through you. Each time you act not from fear but from love, you are letting the Christ live. Each time you choose forgiveness over retaliation, you are letting the Christ heal. Each time you choose silence in the midst of anger to hear a deeper call from within, it is not weakness, it is the greatest power taking form. We have been taught that only doctors, medicine, or someone outside ourselves can heal us. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding. No method can truly heal unless the inner Christ is allowed to operate, for the Christ is the archetype of wholeness already present in every mind. He did not come to be worshipped, but to be lived. No elaborate rituals are required, no hands laid upon you. All that is needed is a simple return to the awareness. Within me is a source that knows how to heal all things. Asterisk. When you grow still and release the ego that tries to control everything, you will hear the whisper, I know the way. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Asterisk. And in that moment, the real healing begins. The inner Christ does not shout. He does not argue. He does not try to prove anything. He simply waits for you to be still long enough to realize he has been there all along. The moment you stop chasing knowledge, fame, reasons, or techniques, and simply say, Lord, I do not know what to do, but I know there is one who does, and I choose to surrender, you create the opening for light to enter. The light does not need to come from anywhere. It is already there, waiting for you to let it pour forth. The inner Christ does not need to be preached. He only needs to be recognized, and each time you look at another without the eyes of judgment, but with the heart of compassion, you are declaring, Christ lives in me. And in them, people often think God will only act when they are holy enough, worthy enough, faithful enough. But the truth is, the inner Christ does not need you to become someone else. He only needs you to lay down the mask that blocks life from expressing itself. No one can teach you how to connect with him. Yet, you can open that door yourself each day by returning to a quiet mind, to a grateful breath, and to the acknowledgement, I am not alone. Within me is one who holds the complete blueprint, and he cannot fail. Asterisk. When you walk in that trust, every choice you make will carry the power to heal, whether you are aware of it or not. Christ is not confined to any religion. He is the wholeness present in every civilization, in every heart that has not been shut down. When you call upon Christ, it is not to perform a spiritual ritual, but to awaken the light within the part of you that knows who you are, that no longer lives in reaction, but in presence. And when that part leads, the body no longer needs to resist. The cells no longer have to fight. The mind no longer needs to wrestle, for the true healer has taken command, not through form, but through your return. The inner Christ does not promise you will not feel pain, but he guarantees that your pain will not be meaningless. He will not erase the darkness, but he will give you light to walk through it. He will not do it for you, but he will always walk with you, and only when you collapse in exhaustion will he be allowed to lift you. not because you call loudly, but because you were quiet enough to hear. This is the power of voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to, and once you return there, you will no longer need anything outside to confirm that you are healed. For you will know you have never left wholeness, you had only forgotten. If there is one thing to remember, it is this: Christ does not come from outside. He is not locked in a book, a sermon, or a theory. He is breathing in every cell of your being, waiting for you to stop fighting yourself, to stop striving to be better, enough, or right. And all you need to say is, I agree, asterisk, that is enough. Nothing left to prove. No one left to convince. In that moment, healing is no longer something to hope for. It becomes your default state. For the true healer does not come to cure an illness, but to remind you, you were never truly broken. You only needed to be awakened. And the inner Christ is that awakening. You did not arrive here by accident, and what you have just heard has not merely passed through your ears, but has touched the deepest part within you, the part that has always known who you are, even when it was veiled by pain, memory, and forgetfulness. Now, you are no longer a seeker of miracles, for you are living within the miracle itself. No one needs to lay hands upon you to bring healing, because the true healing hand has always arisen from within, from the place where Christ has always been present, where every breath declares that you are enough. You have all you need, and you are ready. From this moment on, you no longer need to search for the light. Live as though you are that very light, and you will come to see that you have never been apart from wholeness.